I can keep eating, no problem. I understand, keep eating and drinking.
We are so pleased to have Joanna Jones, who is co-chair of the San Diego Multiple Myeloma Cancer Support Group, be with us today to talk about the federal bills currently under consideration for oral chemo parity, and she'll be discussing two of them in particular. So without further ado, I want to welcome Joanna Jones. Let's give her a big round of applause.
Okay, everybody, I'll leave this. Thank you for that excellent presentation. You covered so much. I really appreciate it, so I don't have to go into that. This is my cat. It was a rescue kitty from House of Reporters. They took 49 cats out of one home, and that was one of the cats. Now, I'm telling you this little story because you can see how a little story kind of hits you emotionally when you hear something like this, and it kind of grabs you. And that's what we do when we go to the legislators' offices. We tell our personal stories, and this is what is remembered by the legislators too. So I'm going to talk about...
So they think you're a cool cat.
He's a cool cat. So this was I've been to Washington, D.C. twice. This was our visit several weeks ago. This is the group from Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. We had a mass picture taken in front of the Capitol. There were over 200 people who met in Washington, D.C. On June 3rd and 4th. 4th was the day we actually went to Capitol Hill. We had prearranged meetings with the legislators, the senators. We had the two senator offices, Dianne Feinstein's office, and then our local representatives that we were constituents of. One of the visits that we made is to Susan Davis' office, which was in our district, and I just want to mention who all went on this visit. I'm not sure how this resolution is. That's Susan Davis. She has already signed one of the bills, the 1801 bill, the federal bill. Our group consisted of, we have 4 people from San Diego, me. This is Irma. Her son, Danny, had leukemia when he was 7 years old. His story, which he talked about too, he had insurance, but the insurance did not cover the $20,000 injections that he needed to cure his leukemia. So his mother quit her job, and to take care of him, she has 2 other children, and through donations, and she had car washes. They raised money through car washes and a rummage sale for her son, so he could afford his $20,000 injection of chemo. So they had a very heartbreaking story with this. He is, they say, they don't use the word here so much, but in remission today. This is an oncologist from Scripps Hospital, the Cancer Research Center, and she added to our discussions because she had the background in oncology and could discuss some of her patients. So we had the leukemia, I was the myeloma person, and she talked about the lymphoma people. I'm the perfect myeloma person to go to Washington, D.C. Since this January, I'm back on Revlimid. I brought with me to each visit my pharmaceutical receipts to show how much Kaiser pays for the Revlimid. They paid $9,000 for Revlimid a month, 21 pills. How many here are on Revlimid? Yeah, the prices vary all over the place. So I pay $12 copay, but somebody who doesn't have insurance, who doesn't have as good an insurance as I do, pay a whole lot more. So this was pretty instructive of, yes, there are medications, oral medications that can cost this much. By the way, the cost issue did come up. The charge that the pharmaceutical company charges the insurance company is from a variety of ways. Is the Lydia person still here? Okay. We're a small group. Myeloma patients, our medication is more expensive. The company wants to get back from R&D and what they put into it, and also it's what the insurance company can negotiate. Kaiser negotiated this particular price from Celgene. I have seen higher prices, people not on a prescription plan, just on Medicare. I've seen a price of $13,000 a month because the Part D Medicare bill does not allow any negotiation of drug prices. A real shame. So here we are at the office. What I want to do is discuss the bills and also people who might be interested in going to some of the offices, what you can expect and what to prepare for. This was one of and what I've learned from also in this, and one of my first lessons was, always wear your jacket in the office. I look terrible in this picture. That's why I cropped the other picture and showed that one. So, and be prepared for pictures, and just get behind somebody, do what you have to do. We were in a rush on this one, so that was one of the lessons. This particular Washington, D.C. visit, like I said, we had over 200 volunteers. We hit over 230 legislator offices. We had signatures and names for the petition to encourage the two bills. And they did a lot of social media with Facebook and Twitter. How many people here use Facebook and Twitter, just out of curiosity? Wow, you're a pretty technical group here. Our San Diego group does not use it as much. So LLS was allowing people to follow this visit through these two media.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Was did the IMF, I know they're doing a lot of advocacy as well. Did you guys coordinate on this?
Yeah. Thank you if you have a quick question, go ahead. I believe that the alliance with the LLS and IMF in San Diego is the way to go. I volunteer at the IMF Myeloma Support Group in San Diego. I volunteer at the LLS office and with the advocacy. It's combined. We've got myeloma people and LLS people. To me, the LLS has a much broader recognition. When Amy Martin, some of you are familiar, she's doing a great job. When they were trying to get legislators, mayors do a myeloma special day, a lot of people had never heard of myeloma. I know when I was diagnosed, I had never heard of it either. So with the LLS, everybody's heard of leukemia and lymphoma, so the name recognition is much broader. And they have a lot of resources. So it's a good partnership. I highly recommend even a partnership with the Susan Chicoman would be a good partnership. You can combine resources and come out of this pretty strong. My question to you, how many people have written letters for whatever reason you get a bad product, your trip was bad? How many people have ever written letters to get some kind of resolution to a problem that they had? Okay, that's kind of what this is like. Because when you have written a letter, probably you were upset. If the money issue was involved, you wanted some fairness. The product was lousy, and you got excited about it. You were kind of passionate about it. Is that right? You had some passion. And I have passion for this issue, partly because of the money issue. We all are passionate about spending our own money. I have to admit, I'm part Scottish in my background. We're very thrifty. So money issues really get me passionate. And my $9,000 a month Revlimid bill, I'm lucky in this, but other people are not so lucky. So I'm very passionate about this issue. And I want you to get in touch with the passion that you have, whether it's for the financial issue or you have loved ones that have been diagnosed. Maybe they're not getting the medications or the care. But think to yourself, what specific issue do you have passion about? Maybe with Susan G. Komen, maybe you know somebody that has had breast cancer. And you just keep that passion alive when you start to go through this process. And keep those personal experiences alive also to explain to the legislator. I've written letters to the editor. When we send a letter, it can be very powerful, especially when we see it printed. Anthony just sent a letter to one of his state congressman, state senator here in California, because AB 219 is in the Senate right now, and we need to focus on our state senators. And he got a letter back. So when you get this feedback, it's really encouraging. I want to talk about some visits that we did also, and just give you some feedback on how they go, so that you can see, yeah, they really do listen to us. We are constituents. We're kind of lobbyists, but we don't bring money. So I have my money scarf here, just in case we need to get their attention. It's got $50 bills, $100 bills on it. I don't wear it in the office, but it's just kind of a little thing I carry around in case you need to get somebody's attention. Okay. The two bills in the federal, if they're in the House right now, the status, they're HR 1801, and you can get these, you can catch these online. I love some websites. 1801, which is the Cancer Drug Coverage Parity Act. Now it says drug coverage. It includes oral plus injections, which is much better than just the oral one that we have here in California, especially when you see a mother whose son needed the injections. Then there is the HR 460, the Patients Access to Treatment Act, which goes into the tiered pharmaceuticals that some of the insurance companies are starting. How many of you here have an insurance company, health insurance, that has the tiered chemicals? They put, it's complex. I don't happen to have that kind of a plan, but what it does, it's called non-specialty tier brand drugs, and they're put into certain categories where a Revlimid could come into a very high category, and then you would have to pay more than if it were in a lower category. That's all I'm going to say about that particular one, because it is pretty complex, especially if none of you have a tiered pharmaceutical benefit right now.
And what's the, I'm sorry, what's the name of that bill again?
HR 460.
Access to what?
There's HR 1801, that's the Cancer Drug Coverage Parity Act of 2013. And then the HR 460 is the Patients Access to Treatments Act, and that's what covers the tiered drug benefit.
Joanna, let me just interject here. I have these listed in this month's newsletter. So, with brief descriptions on them, with links. So, if you go in the newsletter, you'll be able to see a brief description of both those bills, as well as links for more information. Just to put that in there.
Okay, super. Yeah, just throw something in, and if you have a quick question, raise your hand. Longer questions or personal experiences we'll cover later. The federal bill is important because even if AB 219 passes in California, it will not cover federal employees who live in California. It only covers insurance companies that are in California. So that's why we need a federal bill, and especially since it covers injections also, which you don't think of. I've never thought about injections before. The other one, the 460, is a little bit different, and that will cover the companies that bring them into a compliance with the 1801 bill. Right now, both bills need more co-sponsors. They haven't gone to a committee. They need a certain number of co-sponsors in order to go to a committee. We got a list of the co-sponsors for each of the bills, and going into the offices, we have about this was as of 5/13, we had about 25 co-sponsors for HR 1801 and about 30 for 460. So we were encouraging more people to co-sponsor this bill, so at least it gets into a committee and then it can be worked on. So it's very early.
Is this California people voting or?
No, this is federal. I'm talking about federal now.
It's about federal.
Because we have 35, assembly people.
No, we're talking about Congress people.
The people who go to Washington, D.C.
Congress people. It's been introduced into Congress, the House of Representatives.
House of
That's what
Representatives.
HR stands for, House of Representatives
Yes.
bill. And we're up down to 50, I'm sorry, we're now up to 50 co-sponsors for
Co-sponsors?
1801 as of right now.
Oh, good.
Whoa.
As of today?
As of today, yes.
Okay.
And we need how many?
Well, they're about 2/3 of the way there. So that's my understanding of it. So it's real important how many people know who their okay, you've got your California representatives and senators, and you've got your federal senators and representatives. For instance, Feinstein go to Washington, D.C. In our district, Susan Davis, they go to Washington, D.C. How many people know who their Washington, D.C. representatives are? Wow. How many people here vote? Okay, you might want to find that voter pamphlet, the information pamphlet, or you can look online, which is what we're going to do right now. On the piece of paper that is right next to you is the house.gov site to find your representatives. We're going to skip the Senate ones, right? Well, you know who the Senate is, Dianne Feinstein and Barbara Boxer, just two to remember. Okay, somebody who doesn't know, I put in earlier Susan Davis, so that's why she's up there in San Diego. Somebody give me their zip code who doesn't know who their representative is who goes to Washington, D.C. for them.
92545.
92545. Okay. Okay, in this case, you need to have the last 4 digits of your zip code because you're right on the line between two representatives. Do you happen to know those last 4 digits? Okay, let's try another.
543. I guess, well, that's the same area, so.
Yeah, you're going to have to find out the last 4 digits of your address.
92410 there?
Okay, what is it?
92410.
92410. Oh, we need the last 4 digits of yours also, or your street address. Let's put in a street address. Do you mind, or should we look for somebody else?
I'll give you a nine-digit zip.
Okay, let's try another zip. I'll say, anyway, for you two, you're going to have to go and put your street address in and look it up. You've got that website. Okay, let's get one we don't have to look up.
92324-9761.
9761. Have I got that right?
92324-9761.
Okay. Oh my goodness.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah. Okay, now put it in. Give me that last 4 digits.
9761.
Wait, okay. Okay, here we go. Here's your representative, Gary Miller. Does that sound,
Yeah, that sounds right.
familiar?
Yes.
Okay, good. It shows your district. So when you find out who your representative is, you go to his website, his or her website. Now, let's say you want to see this federal bill pass, so you want either write him a letter or go to his office. So let's find out a little bit about this guy. He's got a bio online. So this will tell you his background. We've got pretty small letters here. Let's see, I can make this a little bigger. Can you see some of that? Sounds like he's got fiscal concerns. He was a mayor during his second, he was on the budget committee. Okay, so he's heavily into budget issues. And let's see about what committees that he's on, because that's really important too. The health bill is going to be going to health committee, and he's on the financial services with jurisdiction over the U.S. banking system. He's a member of the Committee House on Transportation and Infrastructure. Okay, so you kind of know his background. You're going to know how to approach the guy. He's a money numbers guy. And in approaching him and telling him your story, for instance, in my case, the Revlimid cost $9,000 a month. Some people are not as fortunate. This is pretty much cost neutral for the insurance companies. They say it will raise rates, but it's not really. If it does raise rates, it's pennies or up to $1, according to the sources, and you can find sources to quote that. You will know how to approach him in the letter, in other words. We have in our district, Duncan Hunter. I don't know if you've heard of Duncan Hunter. His father was on the military committee, Armed Services Committee, plus he was on one of the other committees, and I've been to his offices 3 times. Now, he's heavily into military, protecting military interests and other patriotic issues. The first time we went, 4 of us went to Duncan Hunter's office in San Diego. All adults. We didn't talk to him, we talked to one of his assistants. But you know what? This is not bad, because the assistants are not as distracted with some issues. They just focused, this one woman just focused on what we were saying. We were talking about this issue of the money issue for the drugs. She didn't seem all that moved, because, you know, we're all adults, and we tend to think children are really more sympathetic in this, and that was why we had Danny on the office visit. And then toward the end of the interview, we're not supposed to go off topic, but I just slightly went off topic. And it was in September 2011 that we met in his office. And that was at the time when the bill for the first responders was coming up, and it was covering medical expenses, but not blood cancer expenses. And a lot, you probably read since then that after 9/11, now the myeloma is increased tremendously among 9/11 responders because of all the chemicals they were exposed to. So I brought that up. I said, you know, since it was the month, the 10-year observation, that first responders are not covered by this bill to cover their blood cancers. And she just moved slightly, I noticed. And it was just some additional information, because he is into patriotic issues. When we met a year later in Washington, D.C., at that office there, we had the interview with a different person, but at the end of that interview, she said, you know, Duncan Hunter voted for that bill to provide cancer coverage for blood cancer patients. I was just amazed that we didn't bring it up, but hey, somebody listened. Now when we go to Duncan Hunter's office, we mention the Vietnam veterans from, Vietnam, Afghanistan, Iran. A lot of the veterans are showing up with myeloma. We happen to have one in our group. He's younger than the usual myeloma person. He's almost 50. He worked in the Navy with corrosives on the ship, and he thinks that those chemicals were a factor in him coming down with the myeloma. So I mentioned him when I go to that office. We're going to have him on visits. He couldn't make it to Washington, D.C., but we're good. But see, that's addressing what that particular congressman is interested in. When we went to Susan Davis' offices, her husband is a physician. She had a background in social work plus the medical, so we knew she was already interested, and she's the one person that has met with us in person several times. Usually it's an assistant that we get. So in a way, we're kind of preaching to the choir there, but she's very, very interested in that, in those issues. So you want to kind of tailor your speech for what they're interested in. And let's go. I got so many stories I want to tell, but let's look at that list of the 10 steps when you are. Okay, know your topic. I've got the websites of where you can look up both the IMF and the LLS about the bills to understand them. You can ask for them to co-sign both of the bills if you wish. I'm thinking that the 1801 HR, the HR 1801 is a little bit more important since it's a little more broad. And you can find out also online which they've already signed for, because you're going to see the, the voting record of the person too. Seeing it hit on his, unless he's so new that he doesn't have a voting record yet. But he should have something that was introduced. Okay, the other ones I've seen do have voting records, so you can see what they have co-signed and what they have voted on. He must be pretty new. He's not mentioning some other things. Do you know, is he pretty new in office? Yeah. The other ones will show their voting records. So know your subject of what it's about, why this is different from the state ones, and why we need a federal bill to cover everybody, the federal employees plus the states. When you look up your legislator, be aware that we have had redistricting. Some of you may be in other districts. I had gotten into Duncan Hunter's office last year in Washington, D.C. before the districting. This year I was not in the office. So it's important to look up on the federal site and on the state sites. Enroll others. When you bring somebody with you who is the cancer patient or the mother of somebody, of a patient, that makes the visit so much more powerful. So if it's your relative, if it's friends, even if they're not constituents, you might be the constituent. The person who makes the appointment has to be a constituent. But the people that you have in your office with you, they're not going to ask that. If they're constituents, they're not going to question that. Have your stories ready. We'll get to that when we say prepare for the visit. Make contact. That could be a call, an email, because when you go online, you can see their office. You get their office information in both San Diego and Washington, D.C. Let's see. Office info, okay, it shows here is Washington, D.C., phone number, fax, and then it shows his Rancho Cucamonga phone and fax. Doesn't show email, but if you call, you can get the email. It seems like most of the office personnel want to deal with email, I like to fax a letter. Truthfully, I think it looks better when they get the letter, especially if it's a strong letter. Keep it to one page. Keep your message concise, brief, short, get to the point on this. And then it'll explain the situation in the letter or email and why you want an appointment to meet with this legislator and discuss this particular bill. Doesn't have to be that long. I'm a myeloma patient. My medication through Kaiser is $9,000 a month. Not everybody is so fortunate to have insurance. I would like to discuss with you the federal bill, which would make this affordable to everybody who has myeloma and has to take oral medication. When can I meet you? Keep it really short. And I'm a constituent and volunteer. If you're a volunteer, that sounds really good too. So you make your contact. You get your appointment. It's usually going to be without the legislator there. They're back in Washington, D.C. They do come into town in August. They have a recess. But again, just because it's an assistant, don't discount that. Assistants have a lot of power to make sure who's going to see what. So we want to be respectful to everybody in that office. Get your confirmation. Usually the appointment's about 15 to 20 minutes. And when you prepare for that, this is really important. From the first time I was for first visit here in San Diego County, we had an outline. We had timed our presentation. I had 3 minutes. The person who opened had a minute. The next person had maybe 2 minutes, and we timed it. So that's a sign of respect for the legislator or the office time. We were bam, 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 what we covered. In the Washington, D.C. this last time, in Susan Davis' office, we had an appointment for preparation. We sat around a table, we timed everything. So the 3 of us who spoke mostly, we had it timed to 9 minutes. And I was I'm a past Toastmaster. I look at the clock. I like to keep things on time. We got a call from Susan Davis' office. She's very busy. Could you please come a little earlier? 40 minutes earlier. Okay, then we kind of rushed. We got there on time, exactly on time, and you want to do that out of respect. And she says, I got 8 minutes because I'm going into a meeting. Okay, we talked faster, we got the points across, we had time for her to ask questions, and we even got a picture. So this is what being prepared is like. You can handle any situation that comes up. I think we were pretty impressive too, actually. And she's already on board, she's already signed one of them. And so the meeting preparation, I also had a copy of the prescriptions showing the 9,000 that I showed every office also. And a couple of them, they just can't believe it. Yeah, it's true. How many here are on Revlimid again? Yeah, well, you might feel very passionate about this topic. How many people are probably going to be going on Revlimid? Okay. It's a topic then that you can get excited about. The meeting day, be on time. We dressed very professionally. Unfortunately, when we got in Susan Davis' office, we were so rushed. I didn't have time to put my jacket on. As you see, that was a big mistake. So help your friends out when you go into a visit. Make sure, look at each other, make sure everyone looks good, has their jacket on, and could be ready for a picture. You just never know. And that is also a sign of respect to the legislator. Now, the follow-up. What they were telling us in Washington, D.C., unless you have an email or a letter follow-up thanking them for the visit, then it's just not even a visit. So that part was real important. My thank you notes, and these were all via email. I thanked the assistants and Susan Davis. I made it very personal. I didn't say, oh, thank you for the visit, generic. No. We know Susan Davis is very interested in health issues. We thank her for signing the HR and make it very, very specific so they know you paid attention and you did some homework, by the way. And that's another thing coming into the visit, just by the questions you asked, they can tell if you did your homework or not. When I send out any letter, I try to start with thank you in the beginning line before you do the ask. The ask is asking for their co-sponsorship or their vote, but thanking them ahead of time kind of gets their attention. I don't think they get a lot of thank yous, maybe not enough that they could use, but it shows that you are paying attention to something that they voted on either previously or with this issue. Thank you for your interest in medical issues, we know. So an appreciation, I think, gets their attention. So the follow-up, I added on my follow-up for the co-sponsorship a little bit of urgency to this. Not just leave it, we hope you co-sign. No, we hope you co-sign because there are patients, blood cancer patients right now waiting for affordable medications. Kind of inferring that, this could be a matter of life and death for certain people who can't afford this medication. And what we're hoping to do here is form relationships, not just bam one time and then you're out and they never hear from you again. I've been in Duncan Hunter's office 3 times now, and in Washington, D.C., the 4 of us come to find out we were all Susan Davis constituents. One person thought she was in a different district, but because of redistricting, that was a little surprise when we got there. So I learned that as co-chair of this committee, I got to check out each person's district and zip code because don't depend on what they remember. So I wanted to get into Duncan Hunter's office for the 3rd time. I wanted to get into Juan Vargas's office because I thought we were scheduled for him. When we got our assignments, which was just Barbara Boxer, Feinstein, and Duncan Hunter, I said, how can I get into these other offices? So that day of the visits to Capitol Hill, we had pamphlets to drop off at other offices that we didn't have appointments. We went to Juan Vargas' office, and he's new. We met the lady there, and we turned that information drop-off into a 20-minute appointment. She listened to us, what we were talking about. She identified with their mothers in her district who are facing similar situations. Maybe the office was slow, he's new. She was so accommodating. She was one of the nicest people that we met. She even gave our group free passes to the live House Assembly debate that was going on at that time. That's pretty special. So you just never know. Try anyway, go into an office. We weren't scheduled for Duncan Hunter's office, and I thought, gee, I want to go there because I was there last year. I walked in just cold, met the lady that I had talked with last year, and she listened to me for 10 minutes. The office was busy. I don't know what was going on in that office. People were running back and forth. There was a huddle in one of the offices. Something was going on. But she listened to me for 10 minutes because she said, I remember you from last year. And she had lost an aunt to leukemia. And one of her close friends had a child with leukemia. So those were the connections in her mind. Again, the emotional connections. This impacted her personally. So when I thanked her for the visit, I said, you understand that when it becomes a personal issue because of relatives and family, it really becomes much more important. So that was her little link, and I'll remember her with that connection, and I plan to keep in contact with that office. I'll have to find somebody, a constituent of that district, to make the appointment. But again, if you have one constituent, you can have other people go to that appointment. We don't want to make it more than 4 people at one appointment, but you can plan to have, say, a child, a mother, and somebody else go to the appointment. Okay, I just want to, let me look at my notes. I want to remind you, when you make these visits, and hopefully you're thinking about it now, anybody thinking about, I'll call or I'll start with a letter. They really like to see you. It's amazing. You go into the office and they have time, usually. We have gridlock in Congress, and I have to say, before I went to Washington DC, I thought, oh, with this gridlock, do we even have a chance? Got to get your mind into the frame of mind that we can make a difference. I can make a difference. We can make a difference in this. And I do believe it now, especially after the visits of they wanted to see us, they listened, they took the information, and they looked like they cared, especially when we had these relative and the personal experiences that we had. That's where you have to kind of get him, is with the personal experiences. So think about those personal experiences and develop your own personal experience to be ready for a visit and a letter. So we have to believe it. We have to think we make a difference. Oh, another point. Okay. When I first started doing this, I thought, you know, kids are really the poster children for this, and we need to have younger people. I felt like, okay, I'm a senior, I'm older, I've had a good life. Maybe this legislator thinks, okay, she's had a good life, you know, whatever. I'm seeing now the value of seniors. Who does most of the volunteer work around here that keeps organizations open that wouldn't otherwise be kept open? You've got volunteers in hospitals, churches, other organizations. We seniors are very valuable, and don't underestimate yourself with this value. Let's hear everybody say, at the bottom line on this, at the bottom, I can make a difference, we can make a difference.